I'm delighted to say now that we're joined by George Dobell, senior correspondent at the Cricketer magazine, and no stranger to this programme, to talk about one of the biggest or hottest news stories of the week. A report on the BBC, BBC Sport, on Thursday suggested that the four Indian-owned or heavily invested in 100 sides will not consider using Pakistan players, buying Pakistan players at the 100-player auction. This, to some people, has come as a surprise, but not as a surprise to anybody involved in other IPL owned or heavily invested in franchises in other competitions around the world. George, there's a lot to unpack here. Many thanks indeed for your time. You've written extensively on this. The ECB and, in fact, the BBC find themselves in a bit of a tricky corner, don't they? I mean, the BBC, you've got to broadcast the tournament.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Nice to see you guys, by the way. I think it's a massive moment for English cricket. I really do. I think it's a huge moment. I wonder whether we might look back and compare this to the D'Oliveira affair. And that is the significance in that it's really important that the ECB do the right thing now. And for what it's worth, I think they will. I'm actually quite optimistic. But yeah, the point you make about the BBC is really interesting. As I pointed out in my article the other day, if they believe their own story, and I know the journalists involved and I believe them, then it's very difficult for them to continue to broadcast the competition. They cannot broadcast, they cannot be involved in something that they honestly think is discriminatory. And I don't think they'd want to be. So the implications are absolutely enormous. And yeah, the next few weeks are going to be fascinating.
George, have the ECB fallen asleep at the wheel?
I think there might be an element of that. I think they were absolutely focused on on raising as much money as they could from auctioning the sides, basically, and that was their priority. And maybe they didn't allow themselves, rather conveniently, to think about this situation. To be fair to them, it has worsened. I think. I think the relations between India, Pakistan, and India and Bangladesh and Pakistan have probably deteriorated in recent months. And something that seemed like a potential challenge has become pressing and urgent. So, yeah, some criticism, but also I'll cut them again a little bit of slack in that there are some checks and balances in place, you see. This is why I'm relatively optimistic about what happens next. There are checks and balances that weren't in place before. So, I think the English game has learned a lot from the last few years and the inclusion crisis, and is better equipped to deal with it.
George, there are 67 Pakistani players who've signed up for the 100 auction. If four teams sign one or two of them and four don't, unless there is a statement from the four who don't, which says categorically that this was our strategy and this is our policy, is it in any way remotely possible to prove that it's anything other than a coincidence?
Prove is a really interesting word. So let's go back a step. Before the auction, the teams have to submit a long list of players in which they're interested. That might be more revealing and maybe more important. I think people who point out that there aren't very many Pakistan players making a compelling case for selection have a reasonable point. I would put Usman Tariq's name out there, though. Right now, if you're picking a World 11, he'd have a shout to be included, right? And if sides didn't put him on their long list, they'd have to have a compelling reason, I think, to explain what their spin options were that were so good that this guy who's taking wickets every time he bowls, that has this action that is causing such consternation, that they would have to have a pretty strong reason. Now, proof is going to be hard. Yeah, I agree. Except there are a lot of people involved, and in most cases, these teams are either not majority owned or not entirely owned, okay, by IPL entities. So what you need for a discriminatory system to work, if you like, is for all those people involved in those teams to go along with it. So you're telling me that for there to be a policy that the team says we're not going to pick anyone from Pakistan or Bangladesh, that they're going to tell their coaches that, their analysts that, the officials of the county that. Now, maybe they will try and do that, but I find it hard to believe that if they do that, then any one of those people won't come forward and report it to the regulator, as would be their duty, as they absolutely would have to do. And it only needs one whistleblower to come forward. And I don't believe that English cricket is full of people who are that weak that they will go along with it, or who welcome the discrimination. So the other thing is that I would say, and I don't in any way want to dilute the seriousness of this situation. I genuinely think it's a massive moment for English cricket. But the people in charge of the game right now, the two Richards, have a pretty good track record in this regard. You know, Richard Thompson was on the ECB board when it called for the equity report, the Cindy Butts report, before the Azim Rafiq affair. You know, before it was fashionable, for want of a better phrase, to do that. They were interested in doing the right thing. And then you got Richard Gould, who at Surrey was involved in setting up ACE, again, before it was fashionable to do any of this stuff. They did the right things when no one was looking, really. And I have some faith that they'll do the right things again. I think they are committed in these areas. So I don't think that they will just go along with, well, it's very hard to prove. It's problematic and all the rest of it. They do have powers. The regulator does have powers. And then there's the other thing, Manners. Again, I don't believe that people in English cricket or the supporters of English cricket will go along with something they perceive to be discriminatory. I don't believe the sponsors will do it. And Harmy might remember how important the sponsors withdrawing at Yorkshire became. It was a massive moment in that saga. So if this goes on for years and you have a situation where, yeah, maybe 1 year it's hard to prove, but becomes more compelling over time, I think that a boycott by spectators, by media, by broadcasters, by sponsors is absolutely on the table. And I think there may be an arrogance among some that they think they're untouchable in this country and they think they can carry on as they might do elsewhere. But, you know, I would suggest they look at Peter Mandelson, they look at Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and they see how that has worked out for them. No, there are laws here. And without in any way meaning to condone what's going on in many ways in Pakistan, there's no way that you can further the political maneuvers that are going on in India against Pakistan in the UK. There are different laws, different mindset, and we're not going to allow it to happen. And I think that will be quite a widespread view. So there are so many checks and balances there. The last one being people pay by buying tickets, you know, people support or not support that way, that I think it becomes a real issue. So I would like to think that in the next few days, sense will emerge and some of these teams will actually include on their long list some players who you might not see in auctions in other places in the world. That would be the best solution. And if that doesn't work, well, then the media has to do its job. It has to hold people to account. It has to ask them if this is a policy. And we have to listen to what they say and go from there. But I'm not saying it's going to be easy or cut and dried. You're absolutely right about very hard to prove. But also, don't take people for idiots.
Yeah, I mean, George, I've got it says 67 cricketers from Pakistan going in the auction. It's 63 men, 4 women. On my list here, I've probably got 8 that I think would possibly get into the 100 teams. That if I was picking a group, I'd be thinking, I think Tariq's one of them, definitely one of them. I've got Babar Azam, but Babar Azam's in such a dark place when it comes to his career at this moment in time. I can see a team not taking him. He'd be taking him just on name. So when people say it's 67 cricketers, I think 6 max probably have the skill sets to play in the 100. But from a I think an outlook point of view, George, how much damage is this doing towards the English game at this moment in time? Because like managers are saying, yes, you've got to prove it if it is there. If it's not there, then great. I mean, then they'll come out and prove that it's not there, and there'll be Pakistan players picked up in the draft, and everything will go swimmingly, and the country will keep going. Is there damage to the English game at this moment in time?
I'm not sure there is right now. I mean, you know what I think about the 100 generally, and that I think the 100 generally is damaging the county game, and I think the county game is the future of the England side. So I've got a lot of reservations about the competitions as a whole. But if you mean morally, I think right now nothing particularly untoward has happened yet. So that's what I mean, that the next few weeks are so important. And as I say, I'll go back to the D'Oliveira affair. There was a situation there where some allowed themselves to look the other way, I think. D'Oliveira basically not selected when he should have been. A shameful chapter in the English game. If that happened again, if the English game looks the other way, if it really will sell its morality to the highest bidder, then, I'll be the first in line to criticize. It would be a shameful, disgusting moment. It would be a parting of the ways, as far as I'm concerned. But we're not there. We're not there. And actually, things are working as they should right now. So let's see what happens. The optimistic view is that actually this is an opportunity to build some bridges. This is actually an opportunity for some teams to say, do you know what? There are some really great cricketers from all around the world. We'll try and get them together. We'll try and get to the stage where Pakistan and India and Bangladeshi cricketers are all shaking hands and playing with or against together again. Or if not, there aren't going to be many Indian cricketers in the 100. There might be some in the women's competition. That at least there's a situation where Indian coaches or administrators are working with Pakistan players. That would be the optimistic view, that there's an opportunity here for English cricket to play a role in bridging those divides. I would like to think that will happen. If it doesn't happen, if any teams think that they can use English cricket to further the nationalistic fervour that might be growing elsewhere, I think they're in for a shock. I know it's easy to lampoon the fact that the ECB have sent out some strongly worded letters in recent days, but I think that people will find their bite is worse than their bark. The regulator does have teeth. The law does have teeth. As I say again, Mandelson, Mountbatten, Windsor have found that you are not above the law in this country. And that's where we are right now. So no one's necessarily done anything wrong right now, but the situation will reveal itself in the coming days. And I've got every faith that English cricket and English cricket supporters, sponsors and broadcasters will do the right thing.